All right, welcome to the If Columbus Was podcast. I'm Josh Uminski. I got Mark Jaynes with Rapid Mortgage here. Mark, how you doing?
Doing fantastic. Thanks for having me in.
Yeah, so what makes your morning fantastic?
I just actually woke up with a ton of energy today. So woke up, went outside, hung out with my dog in the morning, got some coffee, came here to do this. So it's just a good start to the day.
What kind of dog you have?
Golden Retriever.
How long you had it?
About a year now.
Okay, so it's still in puppy phase? Or
Yeah,
outside
late
the
puppy stage. So it's dog size, but puppy energy.
Okay, and you have a couple kids, right?
Yep, got two. My son's off to college next week, and my daughter's going to be a junior in high school.
Okay, how much do they help with the dog?
My daughter helps a ton. My son, not so much.
Okay, so did she want the dog?
Yeah, my daughter was the driving force. At least my wife blamed it on my daughters for the reason to get the dog. So my wife and daughter were really the driving force on it.
Okay, what was it, like a gift, or just you guys went out and wanted a puppy, so you went and got a puppy?
I think, honestly, my wife was afraid the kids are both going to be off to college here in a couple of years, and I'll be at work, so I think she just wanted a buddy to hang out with, I think was the main driving force.
Okay. So morning rituals, you said it was a fantastic morning. You woke up with a bunch of energy. So what's your morning routine like?
Yeah, 3 days a week I get up and I work out with a trainer. So I actually go work out with a trainer at 7 a.m., kind of get a good pump in. I've been doing that for about a year now. I was really out of shape before that, so that's been a nice positive change over the last year. The days I don't work out with a trainer, I usually go walk the dog, do a 30-minute walk. Just always try to get some exercise in the morning, kind of get showered up, get coffee, and get into the office at 9 o'clock.
Where do you go work out? Where's the trainer at?
Bickford Fitness. It's a private gym in Lewis Center.
Okay. So does walking actually work for you? So I find walking doesn't feel like I get anything out of it. So on those off days, does it actually work, or is it just more of a mental thing where you feel like you're doing something?
I'm definitely not like in a hard cardio, right?
Okay.
So it's two things. One, it's walking the dog, getting it exercise, taking the lift off my wife for that. And honestly, just getting the blood moving a little bit. I feel a little bit more awake and alert when I get to the office versus if I just wake up, shower, head straight to the office in the morning, just doesn't seem to start off correctly. So it might be mental, a little bit of blood flow.
All right. I can always tell when we're at conferences who the people who walk in the morning are, because they fly through the big convention centers. And I'm a fast walker normally, and I have to almost like run to keep up with them. So that's why I'm always curious what kind of walking you're doing in the morning.
Yeah, I walk at about 100 miles an hour. So
okay. All right. So tell me more about Mark. So you have family, originally from Columbus. You like long walks on the beach. Like, what's Mark enjoy?
Yeah, so I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. In my early 20s, I moved to Cincinnati for about 15 years, and then I came back up here maybe 13, 14 years ago. So I've been in Ohio my entire life, Columbus the majority of the time. I work hard. I love what I do for a living. I used to joke around about retiring at 55. No chance I'm going to be doing that. I wouldn't know what I would do with my time. As we were talking earlier, I don't sit still well. So my wife's basically saying I'm not allowed to retire because I would drive her crazy. Kind of love what I do there. My kids are, getting ready to start new stages in life, so that's a lot of fun. My son's been kind of an introvert, kind of hangs out in the basement more than anything else. So I'm really excited to get him out to college and experiencing kind of.
Yeah, and where is he going?
He's going to go to Bowling Green, up in Ohio.
Okay. So tell me more about when you were down in Cincinnati. So where'd you live in Cincinnati? Yeah,
so I lived down in Hyde Park, kind of trendy area just outside of downtown when I first moved down there. Met my wife, got married, moved out to the burbs in Westchester, and then we moved back up to Westerville here in Columbus.
Okay. I had no idea. Anytime I go to Cincinnati, you're always telling me the spots to go to. So I didn't realize you had lived down there for that long. I just thought you knew about Cincinnati and everything.
I was there about 15 years.
Okay. So you're big into bourbon. Is that where that started from, or tell me more about that?
So oddly enough, no. I came into bourbon later in life. It was actually me and my wife sitting down trying to figure out what we wanted to do for our anniversary trip, and I've got an awesome wife. She was like, hey, why don't we try this bourbon trail thing? Everybody around us is into bourbon. Let's figure this thing out. So it was actually my wife's idea originally. I think she might regret that decision at this point in time. But we went down to Bourbon Country in Kentucky after we already lived back in Columbus, did the tasting, kind of got hooked with it, and kind of my collecting problem went from there.
Yeah. So where's your favorite place down there to go? If you were going to go to one place in bourbon country, which place would it be?
So my favorite bourbon comes out of Buffalo Trace, but my favorite tour was actually Maker's Mark. So it's not my favorite bourbon, but their tour, if you actually really want to go see how the bourbon is made, Maker's Mark was a fantastic tour.
Okay, and what makes that better than all the others? What sets it apart?
They do it a little bit more lighthearted. The guide that was taking us around just kind of gave us a lot of history, kind of walked through. It wasn't the technical side of things, but kind of gave the history, how bourbon came to be, why people are so passionate about it, and their grounds are just gorgeous. It's been down there forever, and it's just really, really cool. Plus, they let you actually bottle your own bourbon there and dip it in the red wax. So you kind of get that hands-on experience at the Maker's Mark.
Yeah. Now, I could be completely making this up. Do they let you only dip so far down? Because can't you resell bottles if they have a longer dip on them for more money or something?
I don't know that piece. Yeah, they tell you exactly. They tell you to go 3-4 inches. I don't know if that's the reason for it, but they kind of guide you and walk you through what to do.
I thought I remember seeing or reading somewhere where people on the secondary market, if it has a longer dip on it, it's worth more money because it was like a messed up type bottle or whatever, so it's worth more.
That is a fact I did not know.
I could be making it up too, so don't hold me to that. So what's your favorite bourbon? You said that comes out of Buffalo Trace. That's my favorite place to go. I haven't been to Maker's Mark though, but Buffalo Trace, out of all the tours I've gone on down there, that's my go-to spot.
I mean, Buffalo Trace at this point makes so many good bourbons. A lot of people don't realize everything that they make. I mean, they make the entire Weller collection. They make actual Buffalo Trace. They do Eagle Rare. They do E.H. Taylor. They do the Pappy. So, I mean, pretty much anything that comes out of Buffalo Trace is fantastic. I don't think I dislike any of the bourbons that they put out.
Which one's your go-to? You're on a deserted island. You have one bourbon to choose. Which one you taking with you?
That'd be tough. I mean, the Weller 12-year is going to be up there. Also, different brand Whistle Pig 15, would be up there. Obviously, there's some that are ridiculously expensive that I don't drink on a regular basis. But on ones that I've got on my shelf, those would probably be my top two.
Okay. And you've always told me there's one Whistle Pig that's not good, right? That you shouldn't buy?
Yeah, for whatever reason, I don't like the taste of the Whistle Pig 10. I like their 6, their 12, their 15, their 18, and the Boss Hog, just not the 10-year.
Okay, so what's up with the 10?
It's actually I'm not a Scotch person at all. And the 10 has a little bit of that kind of musty, I don't know, I'd say Scotch tastes like dirt half the time. The 10 has that kind of, that finish to it, and I like the more sweet finish of a normal bourbon.
Okay, and that's Scotch to me tastes like a Band-Aid. Like there's like a rubber Band-Aid taste to it to me. And it smells that way too. I can take one sip of it and I'm like, nope, can't do it. So I don't know how people actually do Scotch.
I went to Scotland back in March. My daughter competed in Irish dance, so we went there for the World Championship of Irish dance. I'm in Scotland. I'm like, I got to give it a shot. There's got to be a Scotch that I like. I met some locals. They took me around. I went to different distilleries. I did 4 different tastings. I found a couple that I could tolerate, but that's about it. Like my worst bourbon, I would still choose over the best Scotch that I had. So I just could not get into it. I gave it my full effort, but I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah. So do you like rye bourbons over like a wheated bourbon?
Actually, the wheated bourbons are typically where I go. In the ryes, there's just such a variety of it. The Whistle Pig that I like a lot is a rye, but it's really smooth. There's some ryes that are really they taste hot. So it just kind of depends on the brand, whether I like their rye or their normal wheated.
Okay, and that's how I am too. I stick, or stay away from, I should say, more of the ryes. And it almost, to me, feels like that's the middle ground between like a wheated bourbon and Scotch. It's like the rye is like the middle ground to me. And I don't know if that's just me in my head or what.
Might be the ones you tried. You got to try the Whistle Pig 12. Okay. Easy to find on the shelf. It's about $100, but it's reasonably priced and it's really good.
Okay. So you're over in Scotland. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so my daughter competed for, I guess, about 10 years in Irish dance. So the World Championship Irish dance happened to be in Glasgow, Scotland this year. She competed on a team. They actually won the World Championship with their team out of Westerville, Ohio, which is kind of crazy to see like somebody from a little small suburb of Columbus go over and win the World Championship in the 16-person figure team. But that was a really, really cool experience. We were there 5 days early, so we got to go to Stirling Castle, Edinburgh Castle. We went and did a bunch of the sightseeing stuff. It was a really, really cool experience. Took the whole family, so we got to spend basically about 9 days over in Scotland.
Okay. So one of my like bucket list places is Ireland. So I don't know how close, like, are they similar, not similar? Do you know anything about that?
So unfortunately, we were supposed to compete in Dublin, Ireland at the World Championship of Irish Dance when COVID hit. So we actually were booked in March of 2020. COVID hit. We had to cancel the trip. So I've actually never made it to Ireland. Edinburgh, Scotland, I've been told is close to what Ireland would feel like, kind of the parts of Dublin. Glasgow, Scotland was that was a little bit more, felt like a city, a little bit more built up, but Edinburgh felt like old school. Everything felt like it was from the 1400s.
Okay. The reason I want to go is I just want to get lost in a pub. Like I could sit in a pub for hours. I can do that here, like in America, and I'm sure they're nowhere near the same kind of style as they actually are over there.
Scotland has a lot of really cool pubs too.
Okay.
So as far as that vibe goes, Scotland and Ireland would be very similar. Both have amazing golf courses. I went up and visited the old course at St. Andrews when we were over in Scotland. I didn't get a chance to play it, but I went and had a pint over there just to get the full experience.
Yeah. Did you play it all over there?
No, I did not. It was more kind of family stuff. The weather, the only bad thing about Scotland and Ireland is it rains almost every single day.
Yeah.
And it was early April, but it was probably 45 degrees on most days. There was snow on the hills. Like it's kind of, the weather's kind of crappy for that. You almost have to go 1 week in July. I think their weather gets over 75 degrees, and that would be the time to go.
Okay. See, that sounds perfect to me. Like I love Seattle. I love the mountains. I love the gray skies. I love the rain. I hate summer. I hate when it's 95 out and you're just sweating walking from your car to wherever you're going. So that actually sounds ideal to me. So when I think of Ireland and Scotland, I think more like Game of Thrones type stuff. Do you watch Game of Thrones?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Okay.
I haven't watched the new spinoff yet, House of Dragons or whatever that
Yeah.
is. I've not caught that one yet, but I did watch all of the Game of Thrones.
Okay. We watched the first season. The second season just came out. We haven't watched that yet. So we'll probably spend a day or two binge watching it all. So that's typically how we watch shows. So.
Yeah, and a lot of that was filmed in Scotland. So we went to a few of the places where that was filmed, and also where Harry Potter. A lot of the
Okay.
Harry Potter stuff was filmed was in Scotland.
All right. Are you into Harry Potter?
My son is, so that was a
Okay.
big bucket list for him heading over to Scotland. Edinburgh's where the author lived while she wrote it.
Okay.
And then a lot of the famous train and all that stuff is all in Scotland.
Yeah. We went to like Harry Potter World down in Orlando at one of Universal, I think it is. And it is amazing how realistic they make that look like it. So the only thing that I thought was a little weird is because it's 95 degrees because you're in Florida. But other than that, like if you could take away the sunny skies, it would feel like you're actually in Harry Potter. So have you been down there?
Yeah, we actually did do that, again, because he's a big Harry Potter freak.
Yeah.
So, we did that for, I think, 2 days, and that was enough for me. I checked off the good parent list. We did Disney. We did Universal the next year, but I'm not a huge fan of either one. I'm glad we did it once, but it's not something I'm in a hurry to go back to do.
Okay. So you do loans. Mm-hmm. So tell me about that. How did you get into the mortgage business?
So 30 years ago, I actually just hit my 30-year anniversary in the mortgage business in June. So don't feel that old, but I mean, that makes me sound really, really old.
You don't look that old.
I actually was going to OSU, planned on going into engineering, needed a summer job. My friend's dad owned a mortgage company, a small broker shop. They needed some telemarketers for the summer, so me and a couple of my buddies did that. Ended up being good on the phone. They talked me into being a loan officer, and that kind of, that was all she wrote. I never looked at doing anything else since that summer job.
Okay. So you obviously enjoy it to be doing it 30 years. What's your favorite part about it? What do you enjoy most?
So there's really two pieces for me. One is obviously buying a house is the number one investment that people make. So being able to take really good care of them. The mortgage process can be really, really tedious. So when we get a client through that process and they enjoy it and they're excited and they're confident walking into their new home, still after 30 years, that gives me a ton of reward. I just love seeing the look on their face, the sigh of relief when they hear they're clear to close and everything is set for closing. So that's one big piece of it. The other, which is actually newer, for the first 20 years, I didn't work with real estate agents. But in 2014, I pivoted my business to work with realtors and builders. I love the partners that I have, the interactions that we have, working in close, relationship with the realtor partners. I love that aspect of the job.
Okay, so tell me, let's rewind. First 20 years, what were you doing?
So at that point in time, we were primarily focused on refinances, and I was getting the majority of my business by buying internet leads. That's actually where most of this gray hair comes from.
Okay.
Is spending a bunch of money on internet leads, and I had a team of 100 people at one point in time dialing for dollars, calling up those leads, trying to find out who had a high rate, and figuring out how to drop them down for them.
Okay, so I know how real estate agents buy leads, like Zillow, Realtor.com, Homes.com, all those different sites. How does a lender By like, where do you go to get leads?
So back then it was Lending Tree, Lower My Bills, Loan Bright, similar setups, right? They would just advertise online, similar to what Zillow does.
Yeah.
They would get the client to fill out a questionnaire, and then they would sell that questionnaire off. Back then they were selling it to 4 lenders simultaneously, and then it was our job to call and compete and try to win the business.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That's the Zillow model. So, so why the pivot? What went into that?
So honestly, that was the only point in my career that I thought about getting out of mortgages. I hit burnout. I didn't enjoy it anymore. There wasn't that sense of satisfaction. Saving somebody $200 a month is great, but it wasn't as cool as watching somebody buy their first home. Rates had also jumped up pretty dramatically in the middle of 2013. So we were selling rates in the 3s. They jumped up to 5.5 over like a 2-month period, and refis almost dried up overnight. So part of it was job satisfaction, part of it was necessity. If I didn't pivot to purchase at that point in time, a lot of people just got killed off and aren't in the industry any longer.
Yeah.
So I was able to kind of see where the business was heading, make a pivot, and I'm really, really glad I do because it basically rejuvenated my career. I may not still be doing this if I was still in that refi call center model. I'm almost guarantee I wouldn't still be doing it.
Yeah, I can relate to that. So I get asked a lot, why did I stop selling a couple years ago and go into the team leader CEO role? And it was a lot of the same thing. I liked helping people, but it was more of a transition of a mindset. So I was just bored with the everyday real estate aspect of it, right? So we'd have our team meetings on Mondays, and I'd have these new agents coming in, and they'd find a new buyer over the weekend at an open house, or they'd put somebody in contract, and I was getting more excited seeing them excited about being successful versus me going and putting somebody in contract over the weekend. That I felt like I should be doing that every weekend. It was just that mundane thing over and over again every weekend. All right, this is what you're doing. This is what you're doing. So I can totally relate to that. So to the real estate partner, so you said you really enjoy that. Mm-hmm. So what aspect of that do you like the most?
So, there's, won't name anybody, but there's a lot of bad lenders out there, right? There's a lot of national call center type banks. Clients are going to get a bad experience. Deals aren't going to close on time. They're going to ask for 4 extensions. Communication's poor. So I really enjoy helping our agent partners and knowing that they're going to enjoy the experience as well, right? Giving them a sense of peace that it's going to close on time, that it's going to close the way that we discussed with the client. Plus, I fuel off of my realtor partners. So I get coached. I have a business coach, but a lot of my good ideas come from hanging out with realtors like you and my other realtor partners to say, hey, this is what I'm doing for my clients. This is what I'm doing for this. This is what I'm doing for that. And I'm able to feed off their ideas, implement those into my own business, and improve, what our customer experience looks like. So every single week, I'm talking to probably 50 different real estate agents, and I'm just feeding off their energy, feeding off their ideas. And it's a two-way street, right? I help them with marketing, I help them with coaching ideas, and they help me. So it's a true partnership. So I don't feel like it's work. I don't feel like it's a job that I have to do. When I'm calling my realtor partners, I'm looking forward to those phone calls because I'm talking to people that I know, that I like, and I know I'm going to leave that call with something positive from their side of the conversation.
Okay. And I feel like you're one of the rare lenders in the business. So the agents I talk to are very loyal to you. So and I think that's because you take care of them, make sure they're taken care of. But you almost have like a cult following. So of a group of agents, I know if I'm going to a Rapid event, I'm going to see the same 20 agents there because they like and trust you and appreciate you. So kudos to you for doing that and everything. And
a lot of that comes from the business coaching, right? So I do have like a giver's heart. Like I do truly believe in kind of give first and ask second. But my coaches have really beat that into my head over the last 10 years where you got to take really good care of them. You have to treat them like friends. If you don't enjoy the agents that you're working with, you'll burn out and you'll get out of it. So I've been fortunate to go find, my probably 30 or 40 agents that I could go have a beer with every single day, go travel with, go out to dinner with, take my wife out with, and it would feel like we're friends hanging out, not necessarily just business partners.
Yeah, totally get that. So you mentioned coaching. You're one of the very most knowledgeable people I know when it comes to interest rates and being able to understand those and how they work. What do you think is going to happen going forward in the next couple of months? That's a big talking point with everyone right now.
Sure. So obviously I don't have a crystal ball. I'll give that disclaimer, right? This is just kind of what I'm hearing from people much smarter than me. The Fed looks very much inclined to cut rates in September. All of the data seems to support that they're going to be able to continue to cut the rates. So inflation looks better. Unfortunately, for interest rates to come down, jobless numbers go up. So it's not necessarily a positive for most people, but for the mortgage world, as the jobs aren't created as fast, that will actually improve mortgage rates. And unfortunately, the last couple of jobs reports have been kind of poor.
Yeah.
Again, which kind of helps drive mortgage rates. So we think that it's not going to be a straight line from here to here. It's going to kind of come down, bump up, come down a little more, bump up. But we definitely feel like over the next 6 to 7 months, there's a very good chance that we could be talking about rates at least in the mid to high fives, if not lower.
Okay. And so somebody who just bought in the past year who has that 7% rate, what level should they start thinking about a refi? At what point is it worth them refinancing their house?
So standard rule of thumb is as long as you're going to be in the home for at least 2 more years, you want to save at least 1% on the rate, right? But that is a very generalized term. We're going to be looking at a couple different things. We actually reached out to every single client that we've closed a loan for that does have a rate over 7% to tell them, hey, we're going to refinance you. Just don't do it yet. Don't jump the gun. They're being solicited by internet banks and all these people saying, hey, I could get you from 7 to 6.5. You should refi today, right? And they're saving $100 a month, and that might sound good. The problem is they're going to incur generally about $2,000 to $4,000 in cost to do a refinance. So if they go from 7 to 6.5 today, and then 6 months from now we're at 5.75, they're going to want to refi again, and they're going to double dip those closing costs. So we're telling people to kind of sit tight, let the Fed do their thing, let rates come down. We're not going to try to basically time the absolute bottom of the market, but we do feel like 6 months from now we're going to be lower than we are today. So unless you're needing to consolidate debt, pull money out for home improvements, our recommendation is find a lender that you trust, have the conversation now so they know what your goals are, and then let them watch the market and call you when it's time. I think for most people, that'll be probably right around Christmas time to early spring next year will be the prime time to really talk about refinancing.
Okay. So if I'm hearing you right, basically the cost to refinance, you have to make sure you're staying in your home at that rate and the savings to recoup that cost. Is that right?
Absolutely. I mean, and it's the math that we'll do. If it's going to cost $3,000 to refinance and you're going to save $150 a month, your break-even point is 20 months into the loan. So you have to be there just over a year and a half to break even and start seeing the benefit. If you're only going to save $50 a month, that's a lot longer time horizon. So we look at how much can we save you monthly, what's the actual net cost for the rate that you want, and this is how long you'll need to stay in the home. So we have those conversations and usually give option A, option B, option C, depending on what people's goals are. If they tell me they're going to be there 10 years, we're going to get real aggressive with buying down the rate. If they say that I'm only going to be here 2.5 years, we're probably going to try to actually take the rate up a little bit to cover their costs because they're not going to have as much time to recoup. So we kind of personalize that refinance structure.
Okay. So do you see that if the rates drop, do you see more people? We have such a shortage of inventory right now, right? So do you see people selling their house to go buy, or do you see people refinancing lower and just staying in their house and continuing this trend that we have? What would, if you had a crystal ball?
So my fear, I guess I would put it that way, is so many people have 3% rates, and I don't think we're going to get anywhere close to there. An economist, again, that knows more than I do about these things, he thinks that the rate that will trigger people to be willing to give up their 3% rates is 5.5. He thinks at 5.5 that becomes tolerable, that they'll now make the move for the house that they want. Until we get to 5.5, they do not see people willing to go from their 3% rate to a 6.5 rate right now. So I think that the low refinances of 20 and 21 are kind of locking people into their homes. So I think inventory is going to remain an issue in Central Ohio, at least for the foreseeable future, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that it makes me nervous because typically people move every 5 to 7 years, right? So I see people with 7s dropping to 5.5, 6. And then staying and not moving like they typically would if rates stay where they're at. But it's going to be hard for people. You almost have to move. Have to have a reason to move, right? Mm-hmm. Even at 5.5, I think it makes it tricky for people to, because typically you're buying a bigger house if you're moving. Like that's one of the reasons why most people move. So then you're buying a bigger house, you're having more cost on top of a higher rate. So it's going to be It's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons. So with refinances, we're telling people hold off, right? Don't jump the gun. Don't rush out to refinance, right? Again, find a lender that you trust and have the conversation today. We're even disclosing loans, like having them sign paperwork, but telling them we're going to float this out for 4 or 5 months. And then whenever rates hit the magic point, all we have to do is lock you and close you. So we're telling those people to kind of slow down a little bit. Our advice for people that want to purchase a home is the exact opposite. We think that people, if you want to buy a home, you got to move quicker, because if you wait for rates to come down, that's going to bring more buyers that are also waiting into the market, which is going to, only worsen the inventory problem that we've got. And I think we'll go back to seeing offers 30 grand over list, appraisal shortages being covered by buyers. So it's like exact opposite advice. If you want to buy, I would do it today. If you want to refinance, I'd probably wait 6 months and wait for rates to come down.
And a lot of people get hung up on the fact that, I have to wait for rates to come down in order to buy. But if you just wait a year and the value of the house goes up $30,000, you're actually going to end up paying more long term with a lower rate than if you just would have bought with a higher rate, right?
And the beauty of a mortgage is you're not locked into it for 30 years. You can't always refinance.
Right.
And, so one of the things that we've done to help people kind of overcome that is we have a free refi promise where we waive underwriting, processing, and we pay for the appraisal, so that if they do buy today at a 7% rate, they're going to get a really cheap refi when rates do come down. So they're mentally buying at 7, and we can't guarantee them we're going to get them to 5.5. But if the market does come down, instead of waiting to buy then, buy today and then wait to refi until those rates come down.
Which that's the whole, what is it? Date the rate, marry the house.
I hate the saying, but yes, that is 100% true. That got overused out on Facebook.
Well, I hated it because you'd see, and we're friends with 4 million realtors, right? So we'd see it nonstop, but no one would ever explain it. They would just post it, date the rate, marry the house. And I'm like, tell people what that actually means, because most people don't know what it means. So thank you for explaining that.
No problem.
So, all right. So a little bit of fun before we wrap up here. So we talked about bourbon earlier. What's your favorite Columbus bourbon?
So High Bank Distillery, their Whiskey War Double Oak would
Okay.
be probably my favorite local made bourbon.
Okay, and I like that too. So I would second that.
Yeah, especially with the smoked old fashioned that they do, it's fantastic.
Yeah, the double oak bourbons are my favorite. That's just a general type of whiskey, right? It's not necessarily a bourbon, but
Yeah, bourbon's very pure. Most things are bourbon whiskey at this point in time. Most things that people consider bourbon, it has to be aged for a set amount of time, and certain barrels can't have anything done. So the minute they take it out of one barrel and put it into a second barrel, which is what the double oaked is, it technically becomes bourbon whiskey instead of pure bourbon.
Okay.
But 90% of the bourbons out there are bourbon whiskeys at this point.
Yeah, and like I said, the double oak, double oak everything is my favorite. So if I like Woodford, their double oaked is my favorite. So I typically find one, and then if it has a double oaked version, it becomes
surprisingly enough, Jim Beam double oaked is actually pretty good.
I've heard that, and it's only like $20 or something.
Yeah, it's super cheap.
Yeah. So, all right, you ready to do some more of these?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love it.
All right. So, if somebody wants to refi or they're thinking about buying, how do they get a hold of you?
Two easiest way, go out to our website, rapidmortgage.com, or you can call a local number here at 614-845-5200.
All right. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Make sure you hit like. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you later.